Mr. Powell and his sudden shift in stance. I mean, he has signaled perhaps a delay in rate cuts after a series of high inflation data that came out recently. I mean, 6 data points came out since a month ago when Fed last had its policy meet, and all of them were ahead of expectations. I mean, from expectations of 3 cuts this year, we are down to 2 or maybe 1, and some are even saying that we may not see a rate cut at all this year. What are your thoughts on this?
No, I think, Suyash, I think, inflation seems to be a very sticky subject in the US. And I think Mr. Powell is very clear that unless inflation comes down to levels of around 2%, which is their comfort level, a rate cut is completely ruled out. And I think, markets were exorbitant. I think they were very jubilant in saying that, 3, 4 rate cuts could come in. But I think now reality has started sinking in. And I think the markets will obviously factor in this now going forward. I think the latest what I heard is that the interest cut rate could come in at the time of the US presidential elections, and that is some time away. So I think to that extent, what is really negative for our markets is that possibly RBI would also put, rate cuts on hold. We'll also have to wait for some more time before we see the interest cut rate cycle happening here also. So my sense is, I think we'll have to wait and watch how inflation, matters, because once the rate cycle starts, then I think it's going to accelerate downside on a very good note. But for that to happen, maybe we'll have to wait for at least 3-4 months and then see how macros develop.
All right, and do you think that in this current scenario that we are in, are high rates inflationary? I mean, I ask this because some economists have opined that high rates are actually fueling growth and inflation rather than holding them back. What's your thought on this?
No, I think typically, when there is high inflation, growth is also equally aggressive and faster. So there's no doubt about it. But on the economy side, I think, softening of inflation is very important because affordability is very important. I think high inflation is actually not good for many sectors. And I think that actually curtails demand. So my sense is that, from a macro perspective, inflation needs to come down. And I think that would make, obviously, essential prices of essential commodities, essential goods and services also become more reasonable. So I think apart from the growth fact, I think there are many social issues where the government would like to ensure that prices are kept under control. So if we have a good monsoon, Suesh, hopefully I believe food prices will be under control, and that will be a big lever for bringing down the food inflation part, which is an essential element of the overall WPI index.